welcome to another edition of Broken Not Shattered, the BNN podcast. My guest today is from Tampa, Florida. No one else but Rocky Toro. Hey, Rocky, how you doing, Rocky?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good,
I
good.
am just enjoying getting back from taking my dog from the groomer, so I had to make sure I had everything together. So a little bit of a get ready to get everything together, but we're here
Okay,
and we're
great.
ready.
Thanks for making out time to be on the podcast. We're going to have a great conversation. My team have actually told me a lot about your background, and we're going to double into it. I think it's such an exciting story to have, and I believe it's also going to be very inspiring too. Let me start by asking you a simple question. Rocky, how do you get the name Rocky?
Well, I would say that Rocky was a nickname that I had growing up throughout, but when I lived in New York City, it was a name that became even more dominant during that time. I lived in New York for about 5 years, and I will say for anybody that's lived in New York and knows that is not an easy city to live in.
I don't like New York at all. That's me.
I got it out of my system. I'll just say that. But there were some high highs and low lows in New York City. And so for me, taking the name Rocky and reviving it and bringing it back was an opportunity for me to re-empower the name and give myself the opportunity to look at it from a different perspective and really just take and pump the power right back into it. So besides the fact it's a fun name and a lot of people like it, it also matches my personality pretty well.
Oh wow, that's great. Well, you sound very Rocky. let's just go ahead and rock it. Let's go ahead and rock it. Let's go rock it. Let's go rock it. Okay, so oh my God. How do I open up this conversation with you? You had a very interesting life. Very interesting life. Do you mind? Everyone knows you now as a great speaker and you do all this great stuff as a transformational leader. But it's been a journey. Would you like to share with our audience globally what that journey has been like and how it started?
Well, I will say that there are times in our life that we're given gifts and we don't realize that they're a gift until way later. And for me, it was my ability to speak comfortably in front of a crowd, and it was my ability to be comfortable in front of a crowd. I had started dancing from a young age, from when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And so I felt alive in front of people. And on top of that, while I was in elementary school, I was the morning anchor for the whole school, right? And in fourth grade, I was asked to be the speaker at the fifth grade graduation. And so, yeah, right. The principal came in the room and was like, "Hey, do you want to come in?" I was like, "Of course, I want to do all the things," right? Everything was yes, yes, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And so presenting in class was very easy, and getting up in front of people was something that I didn't think two things about. But it was also something that when I got into college and I went to the University of South Florida, by the way, go Bulls, Tampa, Florida. And for me, it was an opportunity for me to continue growing, and was actually gave me the opportunity to get a great career job right out of school. We had done a project for one of my marketing classes, and it was for the regional marketing department of a large telecom company. And my team won from the presentation. So I was able to get offered a job. And from there, I thought, okay, I'm going to be this marketing professional. I'm going to be a CMO one day. Guac, guac. I'm going to go up the chain. I'm going to do all these things, only for that not to happen. About 6 months into my role as a marketing analyst, I was brought into the room by my director, and she said, "You have skills that you have not recognized yet. We're going to put you in training." And I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. Went home crying because I was devastated, because I really thought this was the direction I was going to go. And of course, by the way, when you're in your early 20s, your life is going to pivot so many times. It's part of the journey, and it's okay, right? And so I actually had to train members in the company. It was a union environment, and I was a contract worker, which is already a difficult dynamic to maneuver through. Never mind the fact I was younger than some of the people I was training and how long they'd been in the company. So I was like 24. People had been in the company 25, 26, 28 years. And here I am training them. But it gave me an opportunity to start to really refine my ability to speak in front of people. And that just kind of came throughout my entire career. So we're going to fast forward a bit. And every single role I had to be able to speak, may it be virtually or in front of a crowd. So my last company I was with is 2024, January 2024, and they asked me to speak at the Half Business Review. We were in Aruba. It's a beautiful trip, by the way.
Cool.
And I did a work-life balance workshop for about an hour in front of the entire company, C-level, VPs, everybody. Everybody was there. And I remember being on the plane, coming back home and thinking to myself, this is it. This is my last corporate gig. The next thing I do is the speaking thing. I'm going to do it full throttle. Well, it's a good thing I had made that decision, because in May of that year, even though I was a top performer, I was let go from the company. And you would think that when you're let go, you're going to get anxious, you're going to get worried, you're going to get nervous. And the exact opposite happened with me. I felt the anxiety flush right out of my body. And I knew that I was finally on the right path for myself. So I just went full throttle into it, because that's what I know how to do. And I decided I was done with corporate and I was going to figure it out. And now I am actually doing my dream, and I'm speaking in front of people. And I feel like I'm living the life of greatness that I was destined and called to. That it took a little while to get there, but now I'm feeling very fulfilled from it all.
Well, that's the point about when you're in your purpose, when you're in your in the reason why you were actually placed on planet Earth. There is an inner feeling that comes with it that money can't buy. It's like you said, it's a place of greatness. It's a place of purpose, and you just exude everything that is in you responds to that same thing. But most of the times when we find ourselves at that place and those journeys, there's been a lot of failures and hard knocks that we've had to go through. I remember when I was first mentioned to start this podcast, I couldn't get myself together, because as long as I was concerned, I was going through a lot in my own personal space, that the last thing I wanted to do was to be placed in front of anyone, talking to anyone at all, right? So I shied away from it. 5 years. Didn't want to mention it, but I wrote it down. And that's what kept that dream alive. That I wrote it down.
You manifested it, and it was coming for you, whether you wanted to admit it or
That's
not.
It. after 5 years, I started. And this is going on 4 years. We've been building the same brand and doing the same thing, with a catalog of different stories that end up inspiring me. And yours is about to do the same. Tell us about the back end, the time when Rocky wasn't rocking.
Oh man. Okay. So there's a couple times in life where I had to really go through it. So
just give us a storyline. We want to hear.
There we go. All right, let's get started.
Let's go.
So I actually grew up in a home with a narcissistic mother, and that was very difficult for me to navigate growing up. And my father was a long haul truck driver as well. And all of our family was in New York City or Puerto Rico. So it very much was just me, my mom, and my brother all the time. And then my dad would come home, and he was the sole provider of the household. So he really sacrificed everything so that we can have a comfortable life. And I did not grow up in an environment that promoted me to be my best. Even though I was constantly proving myself, I grew up in gifted classes and all of that. I was the nerdy kid. And it was difficult to get started, especially when you have a parent that tells you you're the reason for the divorce, or that they hated you. And then just all of the things you just never tell a child. So I stopped speaking to I went no contact with my mother just before I turned 16. After my parents' divorce, we decided to go from our beautiful 2-story house. My brother and I both moved in with my dad to a 2-bedroom apartment. My aunt moved in so that we'd be able to have, the parental security that we needed. He switched jobs to one that he came home every day. And the income definitely went from like up here to just, you already know. And so for me to have things my senior year, I had to pay for them myself with the little part-time job that I had picked up. I was working at JCPenney. That was my first job. And it was It was difficult navigating those years, especially when you're a young lady and you don't have your mom to be there for you, and you don't have that safety within your mother. You 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 have to be very careful how you walk and move in life, because you can end up very much in the wrong arms. I was grateful that I was so stubborn about going to college. And so I got in at the University of South Florida, and it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I had surrounded myself with powerful, strong women at that, that helped me reinvigorate my life. Yes, they helped shape me in a positive way. And I could have gone a lot of different directions at that point. A lot of different places were calling. And I was just grateful that I fell into the group that I fell into. And I can never, they're still my closest friends to this day. Right. But in my stubbornness, I also was like, I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to do the big city life. I'm going to, do this. I had this idea that this was the end all be all, right? And so I moved to New York City when I had a job opportunity with that same company that hired me right out of school. I had ended up getting a job opportunity in New York, and it was the absolute worst job for me, to be honest with you. I went from doing a job that I was actually really good at to doing a sales job that it was just, oh, it was so horrible. I was not, no, it was not for me, especially in New York with all the craziness. And so even though I tried to tell them, hey, this particular position isn't like the best for me, can we move me somewhere else? They're like, oh, well, you have to get better at your role before we can move you anywhere. And it's like, okay, so I'm not good at it. I'm telling you, you can utilize my skill set somewhere else. But at that age, of course, the corporate jargon hasn't quite sit in yet. And you just like,
Right.
the system doesn't make any sense to me anyway. So it was September 2nd of 2015. I was fired. I did not have professional work for 16 months in New York City by myself, because even though I had family there, none of them cared to be in contact with me. I had reached out. They didn't know me. They didn't grow up around me. I didn't grow up around them. They just didn't really have any connection. So I did a lot of odd and end jobs. I worked with kids after school part-time, and then I would go and put on this ridiculous dress, and I would be a shot girl at bars on West 4th Street just to make enough money to survive. But somehow I ate every day. I'm telling you, and I don't know how I ate every day and I had money to eat every day. It's because like my angels were like, okay, you will have $2 to be able to, oh, they were my life. You'll have $2 to be able to eat this, or you'll have $10 come out. And literally, I could not believe that I was able to survive all that. But I ended up getting a job later on in digital marketing, finally, 16 months. And when you hit that year mark of being unemployed and living in such difficult situations, you like mentally snap. You're just not the same after that. A lot of people tried to compare, oh, well, I was out of work for 2 months, or, oh, I know how hard it is. I was out of work for 4 months. And I was like, you have no idea what happens when it's been a year. And you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, and you're applying and nothing's coming and no one's getting back to you. And it's not like I didn't have a resume. I just didn't have the last name in New York City and the connections in New York City. And so that's a really big one when it comes to your ability to be successful in that city. So I ended up getting a job with a company. I was with them for about 4.5 years. After that, it was a digital marketing role, and it was pretty good, but I was getting paid a third less than my job that I was at when I first moved to New York. And all that time I had acquired debt. I had gotten myself into only situations. I literally zoned out, and I was just dancing salsa the whole time to just cope with my life, right? And so I remember that last, when the shoe drops, the final shoe drops, and that final notice.
Right, yeah.
That notice comes in like, you owe money, and I didn't know I owed it. And I had been with my company about a year and some change at this point. And I literally called my boss and I'm like, I'm moving home. I would love to keep this job, but I'm moving home. So if I can do this remote, I'll gladly do it remote. And she was like, yep, you work remote from most of your team anyway. You work with a lot of offices virtually, because I worked with the Chicago office, the DC office, and a lot of virtual reps. She's like, you got a handle on your job, go.
Wow.
And it was just I packed up my little Scion TC, Whatever fit in the car came with me. Whatever didn't, did not. I packed my car and I drove home, and I drove back to my dad's house, and I started again at 30 years old.
Wow.
30 years old, first time ever going home. And I lived with my dad for 2 years. And what was great about that is that I got time with my family that I would have never, ever, ever had, right? I got to enjoy that time together. It was also during the pandemic. So we really were at the house all day, you know, just like, but
Wow.
that was one of the largest heartbreaks that happened in my life up to this point. You know, I would say that in every section of life, there were tremendous heartbreaks that happened, but the New York one, and then just the way I grew up, were just extremely difficult to navigate. And now I can look at those time periods when life really did kick me when I was down, but knowing that I had the capacity to get up then gives me the ability to look at anything I'm going through now and just say, well, this is nothing compared to what I've been through. So I know that I can get through it. And
Wow.
it's just a matter of taking those steps and remembering to believe in myself each and every day, you know?
Awesome. We're going to take a break on that, believe in yourself. When we come back, I'm going to continue the questions. I like the fact that you said that the experience gave you the capacity to get up again. The title of today's show, basically, starting over isn't failure. It's just another strategy. And that's just what I believe in. And you just confirmed that, you know, despite the fact that you had some setbacks, you were able to bounce back again. And we would like to know more about that when we come back. We're going to take a short break, as in a short break, and then we will, and then I'll bring you back again, Rocky. It's the BNN podcast. I'm back with my guest today, Rocky, who's actually from Florida, and we've been sharing about her story. Rocky just gave us some insight into her life when things were kind of rough. I was going to ask you to talk about survival mode, but I mean, hey, you just gave it to me right there, and there's nothing else we can ask about that. You bounced back, right? What was it that enabled you to be able to come back? Was it family support? Was it support from friends? Was it a divine intervention? Was it just the inner person that woke up one morning? What was it? Because there's someone out there, Rocky, who might come in contact with this podcast, who might be watching it right now, who's going through what you're going through, or just needs to hear how possible it is to come back. And that's what Broken Not Shattered stands for.
To be honest with you, it was a combination of everything you said.
Great.
It was that family support and having that love back in my life, because the last year I was in New York City, I didn't even physically touch anybody. The last year I was in New York. So that will absolutely impact your ability to communicate with people. And my family was just so patient with me. And when I say family, I'm talking about my dad and my step family. They're amazing and just very loving people. And so they were patient with me. It was sitting down and knowing I didn't know how to figure out anything in my life, but I knew that I could make a budget. And so I just started with the one thing I knew how to fix. I had an opportunity to talk at the National Association of Campus Activities this past weekend. It was the big convention. And one of the students said to me, I feel like I'm looking at a closet with a whole bunch of clothes in it, and it's overwhelming and everything is spilling out, and I just don't know where to start. And I just resonated so much with that, because it was that moment where I also felt that in my life when I came back home. So I just started with the one thing I knew that I had the best chance of understanding, and that was just rebuilding my budget. Because that's the one thing that I felt was easiest. It's like I told him, it's like looking at the black clothes and just pulling all the black clothes out first. And then after that, you get one section done, and then you look and you're like, oh, wait a minute. The red clothes is easy to see now too. Let me pull out the red clothes, or let me start putting these boxes up. So it's just starting in one small space that you know you can get the job done. And once you build that momentum and start to build that confidence, you're able to now apply it to the next section of your life. And so I had friends that I had lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida, another 2 years. And I had friends that were back in Tampa that were like, time to come back come back home, come back to Tampa. And so it gave me an opportunity to get out of the small town that I really wasn't the biggest fan of, but I was enjoying the time with my family, and then feel like I had re-earned that part of my life. I had to earn every single aspect of my life back again. And so when you get to look back and you've earned another piece, you appreciate it that much more. You don't take it for granted. I took Tampa for granted the first time. I believe I took some of the relationships I developed in Tampa the first time for granted. And it's because I just didn't understand the power of what was being given to me until I lost it all. And I was around, not always the best people in New York City, right? Not all of them. I think there were some great people that I met, but there's a good chunk of them that I would be, honestly, if I never met them, I'd be just fine. But I digress. And it was a combination of realizing that I could believe in myself as deeply as other people believed in me, and then taking it the next step and believing in myself even farther, because you can only receive belief from others as deeply as you've met yourself. The same with love, the same with commitment. All of these aspects that we have to dig into our lives to get to where we're meant to be, we have to first see ourselves there and feel that power, because no one else. If we only have a kiddie pool worth of bandwidth, there's all the water somebody pours into us that sees an entire ocean of greatness in us. It's only ever going to fill up that one little kiddie pool.
Yeah.
So we have to go out there and see ourselves as that expansive body of water, to then go back and say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I can do this, and allow what people pour into you to be something that you actually truly feel and resonate with.
Wow. So what was the feeling of going back home at the age of 30? How did you feel?
Well, I would say that I was happy that I got over my stubbornness. I will say that. Well, I was there for 5 years. That was 5 years of stubbornness. I should have probably left after 2 years, to be honest with you. But I am stubborn. I'm an Aries, so it already explains that. But anyway, I'm grateful I was able to keep my job, because if I wouldn't have been able to keep my job, I believe I would have felt a lot more defeated.
Right.
But being able to keep that job and having a boss at that time that was so understanding, and she was just a phenomenal boss in general. She's now a VP in the company, and well deserved for her. But that just gave me, it was like I had gone into these dark depths, and I was able to earn a few things on the way up before I left New York, and I didn't have to lose it when I left. It was like, okay, you've learned, you leveled up, we're allow you to keep these building blocks that you have, and now we're going to really start building this foundation once again. You're not going to lose everything again. And I truly felt that was divine intervention there as well, because I was on the right track. So even though it was something that was hard earned again, it was still like, you get to keep this gift and you get to keep building, because this is what you need to remember and hold on to when life gets tough again, or as you continue to build to the next phase. And I was just given all the love that I needed, that I was missing all that time. So yeah, at 30 years old, I can be like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. But what I really felt like was, oh, I finally woke up. Congratulations. Now take this momentum. You have the rest of your life to keep living. Your life does not end at 25 like the world will try to tell you it does. It doesn't. You live every day for the rest of your life, or you will continue to live the same day over and over again if you do not choose to wake up out of that. And that was the gift I found, was that I don't have to put the rest of my life to a number. I can just say, every day that I wake up and I have air in my lungs, I'm going to go out there and follow my dreams. So.
Wow. So in other words, it isn't a matter of failure for you. It was actually a strategy that you've helped to create more building blocks to get to where you are right now. So let's talk about where you are right now. We've got about another 5 or 6 minutes left on this podcast. I know time flies so fast when the show is going good. So that's let's talk about where you are. Where are you now, and what are you doing that's making impact that is impacting other people's lives? Because I know this is a great story. Tell us about Rocky Speaks.
Well, yes, I would just say one of the great things that happened to me was I went from being someone that thought that I could never own my own house to owning my own home in
Well,
all of that time. And I was able to rebuild, and I was done with corporate, like I mentioned earlier. And it was just time for me to take that philosophy of betting on myself, which is my manifesto and what I speak to, and really apply it. And the funny thing is that when you go out there and say, yeah, I'm going to talk about betting on myself because I learned the power of that throughout my life. And then you go and you try to make that your company and that's your focus and that's your foundation. I was tested all over again on
mm,
so many different levels on, are you really going to stick to this? Or are you going to give up? And at this point, I'm like, well, I'm in too deep. There's no walking back from this, right?
yeah.
But I will say what I did to help me become successful and stay successful was I got mentors. If you are lost and you are struggling, it's not a matter of, there will always be obstacles in our way. But if you cannot figure out how to get over an obstacle yourself, go find someone that can help you get over it. Because as long as you continue to get over obstacles, you are moving forward. And that was one thing that I was able to do. I aligned with different mentors that helped me get that ebook and helped me build that e-course and helped me have that workshop, helped me find my branding so that when I recognized that who I was going to be a reflection of my audience, now I had to get to know myself from a whole nother perspective. And if anybody tells you that entrepreneurship is not a spiritual journey, they're lying to you because
Oh, it
it's
definitely
not.
is. It definitely
Oh,
is. I can tell you that for sure.
what? You really have to get to know yourself on a whole
Yes,
nother
it is.
level.
Yes, it is.
And it's actually a beautiful experience if you allow the transformation to come
Mhm.
to you, right? But now I'm working with an agency as well, and I just kept going and I kept betting on myself and I kept saying I'm going to take these steps. In January, I had an opportunity to talk at the Black Solidarity Conference at Yale University, which was a powerful one for me. Thank you, thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, I just recently spoke at the National Activities Campus, the National Association of Campus Activities, and that is how you get an opportunity to get booked on different campuses around the nation. That is actually how Kevin Hart got started.
Oh, I that,
So,
okay.
and I was able to give a workshop. I was able to give a workshop there. Only 3 speakers from my agency had a slot. And the funny thing was, crazy thing, always be ready because you never know when your opportunity is going to hit. Monday, I did my workshop this past Monday. The Monday before, I got a call from the agency and said, hey, the other speaker had to pull out. Would you like to take the slot? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Now everyone else has had months to prepare, and I'm like, yes, I'm in. Tag me in, coach. And it was an incredible experience. And I'm actually going to be going to APCA, which is also similar to the NACA experience, in the beginning of March, which is
Wow.
also going to open up other opportunities. And what I found is that my opportunities now are very much opening up in the education and academia world. I have a few other opportunities that are there, but I don't want to spoil them just yet.
Okay, that's
So
right. That's right.
you'll find out more as as
Okay,
those doors are fully open.
no
But
problem.
I'm grateful because I am now able to share and help students and help people move past their struggles. I talk to the power of betting on yourself, and there's 10 actionable steps you can take to help achieve better outcomes of success. All what I've discovered throughout my life. And it's an opportunity now that I get to share it with anybody that needs it. May it be entrepreneurs, students, leaders, anybody looking to take that next step in their life and they need to better understand how to align within themselves. These steps can help you get there. And that is what I'm beyond grateful for, because now I don't put my skill sets to someone else's dream. I put them to my dream, and my dream is to help people.
So Frank from London just sent in a question. He says, "Can you share 4 or 5 of those steps?"
Absolutely. So we start off with the voice within. And the voice within is absolutely that what you hear is what's going to dictate the outcome of your life. So there's an opportunity for you to transform that voice within and get it on your side instead of being against you. There's also 5 steps of self, one of them being commitment. And that is, again, we talked about that kiddie pool. As much as you commit to yourself is as much as you'll be able to have that commitment in your life to move forward. There's also awareness. That's another one that sits super heavy with me. But the big one that so many people love is boundaries.
Mm.
You have to have boundaries because you do all this work in self only to find yourself in a situation that if you don't have boundaries, that work is only going to feel like you're not getting anywhere. So instead of spinning your wheels, learn how to put your walls down and draw that line in the sand and say, no, you do not pass go. You do not collect $200. That is not how this goes. Respectfully, this is something that I choose what comes in my life and I choose who comes in my life. And the moment you do not respect my boundaries, now we're going to have a conversation about you stepping back. And if you don't respect that, you will get to know that you messed up with my absence because I don't need to keep my energy in your life anymore.
Wow. Now that's powerful. I'm going to make sure my team put that as a clip and put it out there. that's a powerful one. Boundaries. Yeah. Self-awareness and boundaries. Thank you so much, Rocky, for taking the opportunity to grace. Just been informed that we have run out of time, but I'm going to hold you for the next 2 minutes. There's something I saw recently flying back from another part of the world back into the U.S. And I was watching a podcast, and I found it very exciting. Basically, what it happens is something called a drop-off, right? So as you're leaving, I will ask you a question. I will give you a question of the last person that came in before you.
Okay.
Asked whoever was coming on. And then on your way out, you would now ask a question to our next guest, no matter where they come from, whoever they are, so they can also answer it. Our last guest asked the question, and this was their question. I write it down so I don't forget it. It says, describe your future self.
My future self? My future self is living the life of their dreams with a partner that pours into them, that I get to pour into. I have love in my life in abundance, and I get to continue building out this speaking business and going all over the world with that.
Wow, that is a powerful future self. Where can people find you, Rocky?
Well, I keep it as simple as possible. You can find me on the different social media platforms I'm at Rocky Toro Speaks. And Toro is spelled like the bull.
Okay.
And you can also find me at my website. It's rockytorospeaks.com. If you are interested in booking time with me, you can head over to my Instagram and I have my link tree right there. You can book a call, you can email me, you can get in contact with me from my link tree. And if you are interested in bringing me on as a speaker or doing a workshop, my demo reel is right there. So you can see if you're interested in what I have to offer as well.
Okay, I'll look into that too, just in case I have other gigs that I do and I might need a support speaker and say, hey, Rocky, you want to collab with me and we'll just go ahead and do some good work.
Let's do it. I host too. You can't get me off the mic, man.
I like that. That's a good one. Okay, great. So now it's your turn, Rocky, as we wind down. Put a question, whatever comes to your mind, whatever you want to find out, to our next guest, and whether he, she, or whatever, they have to answer it.
My question will be, when was the last time you truly believed in yourself?
I'm writing it down. When was the last time
you truly believed in yourself?
Wow, that's deep. Woo. Truly believed in yourself. That's a very deep one. Right. Thank you so much, Rocky. To all our audience, you heard what Rocky just asked the next guest, and I think you guys should all take it upon yourselves and ask yourself that question as we wind down this show. When was the last time you truly believed in yourself? Rocky, thank you for gracing this great podcast of ours. The BNM podcast stands for Broken Not Shattered. You've given us your story of brokenness. You're completely not shattered. You're radiant. You're excited. You're pumped. You're rocking. You go, girl. And so in our famous 3 words, I will say peace, grace, and more love.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful time with you.
Is there anything you would like to tell our audience? This is your moment.
The best bet you can put on anybody or anything in your life is on yourself.
Wow. With that, guys, see you next week. Thanks again, Rocky.
Bye.